For the newly indoctrinated, Jim Butcher's The Dresden Files follows the story of a professional wizard in Chicago. We've started our podcast as a way to help break down the series' most important moments, characters, and lore. This is McAnally's Dresden Files Pubcast by Free Flow Rambling. Conjure by it at your own risk.
Welcome to the McAnally's Pubcast, brought to you by Free Flow Rambling. This is episode 4.1, Things Are Getting Hairy, where we are discussing Welcome to the Jungle. My name is Tansenn, and I am joined by Maggie.
Hello, hello.
And Jess.
Hey. Chicago isn't the only place with problems. Wizards are plagued by conundrums internationally. If you're a fan of watching the fellow magic man struggle, track down the JK We're Rolling podcast and listen for all the Dresden references.
Harry Dresden is investigating a brutal mauling at the Lincoln Park Zoo that has left a security guard dead and many questions unanswered. As an investigator of the supernatural, he senses there's more to this case than a simple animal attack. And as Dresden searches for clues to figure out who is really behind the crime, he finds himself next on the victim list and being hunted by the creatures that won't leave much more than a stain if they catch him.
So, yeah, much as I love Dresden and the whole world and enjoy these, I'm really not a graphic novel kind of person. It's so kind of overly melodramatic or something, I think, it's just like, so it's just like, in the books, Harry is a little bit more lighthearted, snarky, more everyday conversational. I can hear that voice, but the way they write the graphic novels and the artwork to depict them is always so much more serious. Oh no, there is a bad guy. It's very sort of like Batman, like to the power of 10 all the time. You know what I mean? Like Spider-Man is like, yo, what's up? Pop culture. And Batman is like, there is doom. We must fight. And I just, graphic novels always have a bit of that feel to me, that they always feel just a little bit
They are much
comical to me. Yeah.
Than a novel.
There is the potential, too. I mean, Jim Butcher has written Spider-Man comics, so maybe it's potentially he was trying to especially avoid copying himself.
I don't know. I mean, it's not. I think that's just in general. It's pretty much any graphic novel I've come across and read, and I mean, it's still kind of Harry, and he still kind of has some quips. But again, maybe it is just sort of like, because the artwork is so much more. Maybe if you took the dialogue and exposition completely on its own, as you do with a novel, I could read it differently. But just, like the horror, the close-up of the and it's just
it's more cinematic in a way.
Yeah, but it's hard for me to read it in any other way other than that very sort of
no subtlety,
noir kind of. And I mean, I know that's sort of resonant, but yeah, it's kind of,
it is a different presentation.
Yeah.
However, for me, I mean, I see it as being. I mean, it's different, but I like it. I enjoy reading manga and I enjoy reading comics as well as normal novels. And for me, seeing it is all very. I enjoy the change up in it because it's like the artwork and stuff. It's different, but it is very like in the theme. And like there is like at one point, like he says something stupid. He's like Zot. Yeah, it's like some stupid like comic book sound onomatopoeia, and I was like, I don't know, it's just like it matches the theme. Like, yeah, you're in a comic book, there should be comic book elements and stupid random sounds. I'm totally down with it. There's like another page in here where like Harry's like running through a list of bad guys in his head trying to figure out like who it could be, and there's like a police lineup of all these monsters or whatever like that. I love it. It's so wicked. Good. It's like you can't really have that. I like the element that the art brings to the story that you can't have.
And I do like, to a certain degree, getting the visual on things that sometimes are not... Like, for instance, when I first started reading the books, I sort of of course, as you do, created sort of a mental picture of, like, Harry's apartment. And sort of just kind of vague it was what it was. And then as it goes on and as you get more descriptions of it or, people placed in different... I was like, oh, do I have it kind of, like... revert, like, and I don't know, I'm just saying whatever at this point, but like, say initially I imagined it whereas like you came in the front door and like his bedroom door was like immediately off to your left when you came in, then something, some description in some point later, and it sounds like, oh, actually is maybe his bedroom door like to the right of the front, you know what I mean, and things. So I'm like, stuff like this is kind of cool. I like sometimes being able to get that visual of, right, like, oh wow, here's actually like they've drawn Harry's apartment. It helps me sort of cement a little, even though it's still author interpretation or illustrator interpretation or whatever. But you know what I mean? Like, there's definite advantages to that. But at the same time, I'm like, it's always slightly jarring when I have a different mental picture to what they've actually drawn in, you know. And I mean, like, yeah, okay, suspension of disbelief, you can mar that a little bit and just go with your own kind of a thing, right? Like, I get that. But I mean, it's just, for me, again, it's just, not that I say I don't dislike, it's still a great format, and I'm not dissing anybody out there that likes the graphic novels. It's just, for me, it always has just, for me, it's hard to change the mindset a little bit, to just twist into that slightly different level of a genre, you know, that I just, again, I sort of in the back of my hand, I always feel, or back of my head, that little bit of a giggle that it's just like taking itself too seriously, you know.
Well, and all,
but I know that
with the graphic novel, I think it's actually helped me in some ways, because I have this vision of Dresden when I read the books of him still being this like 40-something crotchety,
right?
You know,
yeah, your initial impression.
Yeah, that initial impression. But when I actually see the graphic novels, here's a 25-something-year-old. Yeah, and it's obvious that he's not in his mid to late 40s, which I keep thinking he is, just by how he speaks. Yeah, but it's got more of a youthful feel to it. So I've appreciated having that sort of adjustment for me.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe because I didn't read a lot of graphic novels or even sort of like superhero comic book. My brothers had a few more of those, but I was more kind of like an Archie comics kind of gal, I guess. Right, and that is not graphic novels. Graphic novels definitely have a sense more of like intensity and like dour somberness to them that those don't have. And I guess that's just where I kind of like.
Well, even the Ninja my first graphic novel was the Ninja Turtles. And even that one was still drawn pretty darkly.
Mm-hmm. Well, Ninja Turtles, again, they weren't Archie either. They definitely were on a slightly darker level than...
Yeah. So, as per Welcome to the Jungle, we get 3 series regular. This has got Dresden and Murphy and Carmichael. Mm-hmm. And then otherwise a whole slew of never-before-met people. Oh, you're right. That's on me. 4 series regulars.
Quick question. What is the... is this like 6 months before Stormfront?
Yes, so this takes place right after No, sorry. No. This takes right before Stormfront.
Yeah.
This is just before Stormfront.
So do we know like a month or 6 months or...
Give me 30 seconds, and I can answer that.
All right. While you're looking that up, well, there's the actual graphic novel itself comes up with a quote from a piece called "The Jungle." Relentless, remorseless it was. All his protests and screams were nothing to it. It did its cruel will with him, as if his wishes, his feelings, had simply no existence at all. It cut his throat and watched him gasp out his life. Now, The Jungle is a 1906 novel by the American journalist and novelist Upton Sinclair, who was trying to write about the lack of social supports and harsh living and working conditions of workers in Chicago, particularly in the meat industry. Curiously,
it's fitting for how this starts.
Yeah. All of his work ended up sort of not going the way he planned it, and he exposed more health violations and unsanitary practices in the meat industry instead of
the social imbalance.
Of the social imbalance. So he's quoted for his own writing as, "I aimed at the public's heart and I accidentally hit it in the stomach," which was kind of
fun. Dude. Poetry is my passion. Yeah, anyways, no, this happens. It says after Murphy makes lieutenant and before Stormfront, and we already pegged Murphy making lieutenant less than a year before Stormfront. So there is no specific timeline, but we're in about 6 to less months before Stormfront.
That's kind of what I figured. Okay. Sorry, I don't know.
Stormfront happens in March, and there's no snow on the ground yet. So maybe we're like October,
so it could be
November.
Fall, or it could be, yeah. But anyways,
even
okay, fine.
beforehand.
But point being is, yes, it is
we're in zoo
close
season.
to that timeline.
Everything's green.
So, yeah. his age and all that is still similar.
He's a youngin'. Yep.
He's still young and still starting out. Now, this is something I have. See, and again, this is like...
Well, and he's already a consultant, too, so he's no longer under...
Yeah, no, he's got his own thing. That was it. It was not super duper relevant. It was more just kind of throwing that in there that, yes, we're roughly in about the same timeline. It's just a few months
between
before.
Restoration and Faith in this is
so
about 2
again,
to 3 years.
he's got going. Hang on. Yeah, he's got himself going. He's up and running. He's whatever, but still early stages.
2 to 3 years after Restoration of Faith.
Yeah.
6 months before Stormfront.
So
right. I'd agree with that.
yeah, so we open on this bloody gruesome mauling of the guard and blah blah blah. Harry rolls up. See, now this is the Blue Beetle's blue, and we get in Stormfront that the car's already a bit beat up and has. So either a hell of a lot happened in this 1 to 6 month period, or hello, this is a major thing. This is almost like some of the issues I have with the choices they made for the TV show. Why did the artist not draw it different colors?
Well, I think it shows a lot of damage happening in the construction
6 months?
scene. Yeah.
Yeah. There is a lot of construction. There is a lot of damage that does happen in this story to the Blue Beetle.
Yeah.
There is, but I don't think all of it happened.
My original guess is that the artist was not as familiar with the series as
which is
the author.
fair and wonderful. Why was that not something that was corrected by those in the know? And if it's simply like they noticed and opted to leave it that way because they're like, oh, it's the Blue Beetle, so we'll have it start. You know what I mean? I'm like, this to me, as kind of a purist with with the series, I'm like, there should be maybe not as much, even as he describes in the story, and definitely maybe not as much later on in the series, but I'm like, there should be at least like 1 or 2 mismatched parts or patches or something.
See, and I took this as the story where the mismatched parts are coming from.
Yeah, see,
Because-
I think
Because he gets slammed in the driver's side door. I'm getting a little bit ahead already. Slammed in the driver's side door, loses that front light.
Yeah.
He says that there's a fire at some point that melted the front bumper or the front hood, which could have been when he fuegoed the black dog.
True.
See, and I think that this is the introduction to the beginning of the non-discoloration of
It just
The Blue
seems
Beetle.
that a lot happened.
because we don't get a really huge, accurate description of the Blue Beetle being miscolored until full moon.
Maybe, and I was just going to try and pull up and check and see what damages we do have listed.
This could have certainly been done before.
It could have.
Personally, just don't care that much. I feel like it's an artist fail, and that's that. You don't like graphic novels? There you go. Move on.
So in the meantime, we see the guard is getting killed by an unknown assailant, and then the next we see the aftermath with SI and Murphy and Carmichael investigating the scene.
Pan to Dresden.
Yeah, and Carmichael suggests that the victim is the neat and tidy result of an animal attack, to which Murphy basically tells him to go fuck himself. Yeah, no.
Nada. So then, yeah, go to Dresden. He's fighting some shit on his own already in the middle. As per Dresden style, he's already in the middle of some shit.
Looking for Fluffy.
Yeah, looking for Fluffy.
I've
got my victims written down. We've got Maurice, the security guard, and we've got Fluffy. So Harry's in the middle of like a battle with some rawhead hide, which is basically just animated slaughterhouse combobulations.
A raw head and bloody bones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, oh wait, that's not the
Looking for his
description.
landlady's dog, so
Yeah.
doing the landlady a favor, sort of. Here's a collar.
Yeah.
Sucks to be you.
Something formed from the leftovers at a slaughterhouse. So, again, I don't know when this... I guess I was going to say we get more of an introduction to a creature like this in a much later book, but I guess this probably is the first
that's true.
introduction to it, because this probably did come out before that story did. But yeah, later on they're described as they put themselves together from like carcasses and bones and things. So as he said here, like the leftovers of a slaughterhouse. So and they start small. So it starts on rats and move up the food chain. So yeah, basically, well, I mean, I guess we've got the actual visual in there, but yeah, basically it's pieced together from bones and skulls and bits of like muscle and sinew.
They're
Scrappy.
pretty
They're kind of gross and don't really have like an outer layer of skin over top of all that holding them together. So yeah, and the more they consume, the bigger. So it's kind of so you'll like blast that thing and you get the which I admit is makes sense with the comic-y and the graphic novel-y sense. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have that part of it, but
So he checks his messages, phone booth, because apparently cell phones are not a thing for him. Still,
well,
or
ever,
at the time.
or ever, yeah.
Yeah.
They were newish at the time of this, anyways. But yeah, Harry doesn't do the pager thing, or he doesn't even do an answering machine. He keeps an answering service because he doesn't even trust like answering machines and stuff to stay working properly for him, and not like he having the tape, get erased and things on them. So, but anyways, so he calls to check his messages in whatever format that is at this moment. It's like poor Harry. He had like so little jobs to start. Like you see at the beginning of Stormfront, right, where he's like behind on all his rent and bills, and like he has like a battered box of like several times read books, but it's like, but he has to pay all this extra for like an answering service because he can't just use like a cheap old answering machine from Walmart. It's like,
those little tapes
fuck, if I didn't have to pay
themselves.
for somebody else to answer my phone and take my messages. But yeah. But yeah, SI wants him.
Yeah, so he illegally parks in front of Carmichael and promptly insults him. Is that a new stain on your tie? I never realized that Carmichael looked like a monk.
Yeah, I know. yeah, so that's one of those ones. Carmichael doesn't. It's close, but yeah, it's one of those ones that doesn't fit like concretely with my mental image of Carmichael, and that's one of them.
I don't know. I kind of like this monk image. It just makes him look ridiculous.
Yeah, and that is right. Carmichael is supposed to be kind of a caricature, stereotype, sort of. But yeah, exactly. It's one of those things that's just ever so slightly. I'm like, no, I have to tweak that a little. I'm gonna stick with my mental image on that one. Other ones, it's better. You're like, oh yeah, that looks like I get the image. But yeah, their usual fuck you banter to each other, kind of.
We're always toe to toe with it.
Yeah. Always going.
He likes me deep down. I ran a trench deep down, but he likes me.
Yeah.
So Harry, as you said, he agrees to the case quite early on because he's already behind on rent, and he's like, well, I need money. So he heads on down to the zoo and quickly gets a rundown about there's been a bit of a grisly murder. We're pretty sure it wasn't the animals because our security guard who was killed was like a championship marksman and didn't land a single bullet in the animal that supposedly attacked him.
Yeah.
Which is, just one hole in the many theories of it being a zoo animal that got him. So whatever it was got him is somewhere out there with all of his bullets.
Yeah.
And not to mention that it put itself back in the cage and partially cleaned up the evidence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Because gorillas do that,
Yeah.
Right? Well, they are,
They are quite
I want my
smart.
banana. I've been told I have to put my toys away after, so happens there's an extra finger or two with them this
Called
time.
enrichment.
Right? It's like, just because I'm a gorilla doesn't mean I have to live like a slob. Yeah. So yeah, that also, like you say, pokes a few holes in the theory of straight up animal attack. And again, that's sort of, your Murphy there too. You're sort of deadpan, sort of,
And I find with the comic book format too, it's a little bit different in that, Harry does this round of questioning, and in the books, when you have to write each and every interaction, Harry tends to kind of meet one person, and he becomes like very good friends or very good enemies with that one person, and that's kind of it. Whereas in the comic books, you can get a little bit of a slideshow of him talking and being turned down, because it doesn't take as much energy to show that in this format.
You don't have to. You don't have to
write out conversation
explain
after
it all. Yeah,
conversation,
exactly. You can draw that look.
Potentially in the books too. Sometimes you'll have a moment where it's like, oh, I surveyed the area, but it's one sentence. So you kind of like skim over the fact that he might have talked to witnesses or whatever. Whereas in comics, you can see Harry goes through a panel of talking to employees at the zoo, and they're all like, "Hey, get the fuck out of here, outsider!" Like, you're here to put down our gorilla.
The coffee. Oh, I met Dr. Willoughby.
Yeah. So he has a little bit of a swing and a miss time and time again before he eventually stumbles upon Dr. Reese, who is just as anti-investigation as the rest of the employees here, up until Harry's like, I don't think the gorilla did it.
Gorilla,
Right. And then suddenly, oh, all right, if you're not here to put down our gorilla, we can be friends. And so Reese
have a beer. He's like, all right, dude.
Yeah, he's pretty fiercely aggressive when it comes to defending
that gorilla, yeah.
Mo.
Yeah.
Mo the gorilla.
Yeah. So Dr. Reese is primarily the researcher at the zoo. He spends most of his time in the lab and taking care of the gorillas and forming a less than professional bond with the gorillas. He's, like this is like his second family. He's sleeping with Mo. The point is that he's quite passionate about his job. He's the head thing, blah, 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 at the zoo.
Yes, and does not stay, as emotionally, clinically detached as perhaps one ought to. Mm-hmm. So, he's very in Harry's face.
Yeah, so he's got the insight in on Mo, and he's like, there's no way in hell, blah, blah, blah. Which, obviously, Harry buys very quickly.
You don't know him like I do. He would never do this.
We get a little flashback to Dresden's youth.
It seemed almost out of left field for me, honestly. I know he talked about it in Stormfront, but this was just like suddenly like trauma from Dumont. It's like that was not really the time or the place, dude. Like I don't know, like it just seemed like the artist is like, I'm gonna draw this moment.
Abrupt,
Yeah, I was like,
but I've been wrong about people before.
That's the biggest trauma of my life.
Yeah, and especially because like we're not exactly it's not even like meeting sort of like the gorilla. And, like, comparing him, it's, like, just Dr. Reese, who's, like, the gorilla handler. Reese isn't under suspicion for having done this. So he's like, he seemed like a decent guy.
It's like every
but
time
I've been wrong before. And this is what I'm seeing. This is what I mean.
It's like every time he meets, like, his cashier at Walmart, he's like, but I've been wrong before.
Don't make me laugh like that.
I know, like, PTSD can hit you at the worst times, but seriously, Harry, like, you really, like...
we went there? No,
like, and again, this is before Stormfront. Had we done this in-series timelines perfectly, we wouldn't even know anything about Justin Dumont at all. And on top of that, like, we barely know anything already. Like, we don't really learn about Justin until a while later, so this is already so much more. And I said, like, there's a conversation that's going to happen with Charity in a lot of books. Like, we're far away from that conversation.
Yeah.
And that really references back to this point, and...
Yeah.
But it's like, it's such a long time.
I was going to say, it's one of those things that you sort of have to take... I think they're sort of taking for granted a little bit that the readers will have, come from Stormfront and that, right? And so... Yeah, it's kind of like, again, if you don't know, you really have no clue what's going on in this scene, who this is and what this...
You turn the page and you're like, oh, what the fuck is this? What? And it doesn't touch on it again for the rest of the book. Like, if you were a brand new reader, you get like 2 panels and you're like,
yeah, right?
Like,
oh my god, something's drawn in sepia.
Who is Wesley? Sepia? Well, this must be important. That's a flashback.
Yeah.
But
all told, it doesn't give you any information anyways. Like,
no, not really. It's just like, what? Okay, moving on.
Like,
yeah, maybe that'll. So see, and this was my point. Like, there's a lot of great things I like and a lot of advantages to be at shit like this. That just kind of, for me, I'm just kind of like not used to this format. I'm not used to this media. Genre or whatever, that just kind of thought, and that's right, just kind of being like, okay, Harry.
But no one expects the Justin Dumont.
Well,
So,
after that little flashback, he's brought back to life with the meeting Will.
yes, he meets Will. He also met a Dana Watson earlier, too.
Dana?
Dana. Whatever, same thing.
yeah.
Dana or Dana?
Dana. I would say Dana. Dana Watson.
Well, I said Dana, so.
Well, you're probably wrong. There are a few Danas out there, but
I've met more Danas than I've met Danas.
have you really?
I have.
You know one?
I've met 0 of both. But I said Dana,
Like
so.
Dana Scully and,
I've never watched the X-Files.
Doesn't matter. You still. But anyways, point being is, yes, I go with Dana. But yes, he's met
Going with
her.
Dana.
And you can tell because it's one of the few people he's met and had an interaction with, because all the others were side panels of just throwing coffee and like.
That's what I'm
his
saying. We met
narration.
Dana, we
actually
meet Reese,
met
and
her.
we meet Will.
And we get like 2 like squinty-eyed drawings of her. 3. So there's got to be something up
Ominous.
with it. Yes. Right? Because we get the little side eye and the
Details
forehead
and
crinkle.
inking.
Yeah, we get more of her eyebrows than we get of her eyeballs.
Yeah. So, yes, exactly. Like you say, there has to be something up with what is it, Dr. Watson? So,
This is
Yeah.
suspicious
but
Dr.
she comes
Watson.
off as being the only one willing to be helpful because she actually talked to him instead of just throwing coffee in his face. And was like, oh, blah, 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 and animals and zoos and yay and stuff.
I'm on loan from London.
And Lynn from London.
That's how you know you can't trust her.
Right there. She's got the snooty English accent.
To all our British listeners,
I am so sorry.
Which I love. I'm a total like.
I stand by what I said.
I love Doctor Who.
But it doesn't mean that it's not.
I frequently drink tea.
I am drinking tea right now.
But all you Dana Watsons from London, we're on to you.
But exactly. Yeah.
And all you Danas, too.
When you have the smart chick with the hair pulled up and like the French twist bun thing and the British
The exact
accent
hairstyle that Maggie is wearing right now.
Sort of. This isn't a French twist, but I'm not
point
putting
is-
on my British accent right now. If I did, would you know I was evil?
That definitely sounds evil. Okay, so Harry does the rounds. He talks to Dr. Reese. Reese goes off to do shit. And
Yeah.
Will runs into him, and Will is Dr. Reese's assistant. Willamina Rogers.
Who is even more talkative than
Maggie?
Dr. Reese.
She goes on for like
pages and pages and
close.
Oh, damn.
Probably give her a run for her money.
It's
Yeah.
fine, because God strikes... Or who? Something?
What?
Something? The murderer strikes the fear of God into her? Whatever the saying goes. She shuts up after that. She really doesn't talk a whole lot. She just cries for the rest of the series.
Yeah.
We meet her. She's like, oh, and then the rest of that, she just shuts up and sits in the corner.
She's just too much in shock for the rest
Exactly.
of it. She's like, magic?
She's trying to get her eyeballs to fill up those lenses.
Yeah.
Which is exactly how Jessica looks right now, for all you wondering.
No,
Yes, your giant oversized glasses.
they're not.
Oh, sorry, her face is just incredibly tiny.
Shrunken head from Harry Potter.
So
Only not nearly as funny.
Dresden
they're
will
having
end
a
up
nice-
making friends-ish.
Why the long face?
By the evidence of beer.
Beer good.
Till they're interrupted by a lion.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, all of a sudden Mo starts getting a little twitchy and they're like, oh, wait, that's not right. That's odd.
Wait, look behind you.
Well, they narrowly escaped the lion.
Got a lion with some psychedelic specs himself going
Funny,
on.
Harry's been at the zoo for like maybe an hour surveying, you know?
Maybe. Quick,
take
better
long.
kill him now.
Yeah, straight up, like, so far, like, we have one murder in the middle of the night, and now it's, like,
That for
hours
the most
later.
part, people are still, as again, logical conclusion seems to
Be the gorilla, yeah.
to animal, right?
Whatever.
Exactly, So, yeah, let's just all of a sudden have a lion bust
It
out
would
and
make sense
attack
that the
him
lion must have been roaming around this entire time, and no one's noticed that
in
it's
the
missing.
office.
Yeah. Well,
Wouldn't it have been easier to
lions are very
controlled-
dexterous.
Well, I have seen cats open doors before. This is true.
Because I would have thought it would have been easier to, if you're really going to close all of those loose ends and you're trying to pin it on the gorilla, on Mo, then you would use the controlling spell on Mo to do the next attack as well. But less interesting when you have jungle cats to work with, I guess.
I guess. Whatever.
Well, and I mean, the issue for that will come up.
Yeah. Well, and
I guess it's a matter of access.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say more of it, isn't it? Because we don't even know. Like, he had some, but I don't think there's enough present, which is part of like Dresden and Murphy's theory on why Mo is innocent, is that there wasn't enough evidence on him to actually put him at the scene. So so I'm like, it's not. They didn't. Mo, I don't believe, was being controlled to kill the guard in the first place. That was still something else that killed. It's an animal attack, and they've guessed the gorilla because there was faint traces of evidence there.
And it had to have fingers to rip out the throat.
Yeah. But beyond that, so yeah. Either way, point being is now all of a sudden, Harry and Will have.
Unlike certain zoos, the Lincoln Zoo does not shoot on sight at their gorillas. R.I.P. Harambe.
Okay. So you can reach Jess on Twitter.
2020 is all because Harambe died. We wouldn't have had a pandemic if Harambe had lived. Everything went down the toilet on that day.
There you go. There you go.
We are in the dark timeline because of that day.
That makes a lot of sense, sadly.
Yeah, it does. Do the math. Roll back the dominoes. You'll see.
We've already had the discussions on how good our math is around here, so I don't think we have enough time in the episode.
It's so good that it's Discord worthy. So check us out on Discord to get part of the conversation going about our math skills.
About Harambe?
That's
next.
We'll have a separate channel just for that.
If you bring any math to the Discord, you're instantly banned. Blocked, booted, banned. I don't care.
Watch, now there's going to be like 50 equations or something popping up.
I'll build a bot just to, like, anytime a number is mentioned, you're instantly flagged.
You guys are number one. Delete it.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. That sounds about right. It sounds like
I have to be safe, okay?
So lion. So
It's like how some games ban the word butter because it has the name butt in it.
oh gosh.
Thank you to our Patreon subscribers for your generous support. It's people like you who help us do what we do. If you're not yet a Patreon subscriber, sign up today and get a fuck ton of bonus content, kick-ass merch, behind-the-scenes outtakes, and more. Sign up today at patreon.com/freeflowrambling.
So now they suddenly have to run away from a lion. That's gotten into like the. And again, I mean, just from the course of them running around and Harry,
It's like the Scooby-Doo, door to door to door.
Well, it's obviously like down in the bowels of like we all know like administrative offices and things and like zoos and those kinds of places. They're never just like right. They're all hidden away, subterranean usually. So this lion is pretty impressive. That and you can see as they're like dodging out. They're all like these stairwells and doors and things like this. That you're like,
You have a lot of faith in, like, the money a zoo has. Because I've been in the bowels of our zoo. And they are not hallways and hallways. They are like outhouses, basically, that have been shoved around the zoo.
okay,
It's like, here's a cafe for people to buy from, and here's 7 offices we built into the back
This
of it.
is like America, and they're like.
Okay, Canadian zoos don't put money towards shit for our zoos.
Anyways,
They are
I'm just
sad
saying,
places.
So fine, you can blame this on artist interpretation then either. Maybe there was like a particle board partition and that was it. But as going by what we're presented here, there's like hallways and multiple doors and a staircase. And so either somebody walked this lion in and like dropped him outside the office door and then zapped him, or this controlling spell has a whole other level to it that he got there. But yes, they go through a whole big run around, shoot him out a big door into a. Was it a loading dock or something, or just a random maintenance room?
Yeah, because he mentions that the janitor's room has a metal door.
Yeah.
Whereas the other ones have wooden doors, so he...
Yeah, there's a
I think that's
janitor's
the
closet
janitor's
not far
closet.
from the ape exhibit with a door that might hold this thing, yeah. So, but yeah, finds a janitor's closet to lock.
They make their mad dash and they get away from the lion.
Yeah.
And the whole time, I mean, like, she can see, Miss Rogers, Will, that this
Rogers?
thing has, like, glowing eyes. Like, it is clearly not okay.
Yeah,
It is, like-
yeah, they can sense that it's got some mojo or something.
Got some
It's
mojo
not
going on to it,
acting
right?
yeah.
So it is clear to both that this is not just a rampant lion
yeah.
Right.
chasing them down, right? And they do eventually get themselves to that maintenance room and locked off and cordoned off and whatever. And Wilhelmina has a little bit of like, what the fuck? And then,
What was with his eyeballs? It's weird.
yeah, and then, you know, suddenly the lion is like, the least of their worries
Yeah.
when you've got...
Enter chapter
Mr.
2, and there is
yeah, he
lot
turns
more.
around. He's like, okay, that's just not fair.
Yeah, and you've got like the tiger and the panther and the lion.
Yeah, you got a
and
couple of tigers,
It's all the
a
big
leopard,
cats.
some cougars. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So
and again, his line again, do
Get
I have a
fucked.
great job or what? Granted, some days are better than others. So, yeah, and here's where she's like, their eyes, what's wrong with their eyes? So, yeah, so the beetle in Stormfront, to finish that thought, to go back, the beetle isn't really blue anymore since both doors have been replaced, one with a green clone, one with a white one, and the hood of the storage trunk in front had to be replaced with a red duplicate, but the name stuck anyway.
Is that from...
So that's Stormfront. So he's got both doors and the hood storage trunk because it's in the front on the beetle. So,
And it is blue. Oh, it's all blue.
and it's all blue. And see, yeah, according to this doesn't really look, as far as the artist rendering goes, that those are any of the spots that particularly, like you say, the light, but it doesn't look like he had both doors and the trunk smashed. So
There
I'm just
is
going to
unknown
say,
that happens between here and then
well, either there's,
because he is very hard on everything.
I'm just saying I would have liked to seen at least one mismatch panel, if not, like, that's all I'm, there just should have been like one or two or
I don't
some
know, in
dings or
future graphic
scratches that are
novels,
like,
are there pictures of the not blue beetle?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
we will find out as we go, I guess.
yeah.
But anyways, that was my thing. So just there you go.
So chapter 2 continues.
So yeah, so now they've got like half a dozen cats on their ass.
Yeah, Dresden is smart and uses the sprinkler system to disrupt the spell because of the flow of water.
Flow of water, disrupting magical energies. Yeah, so now he's just got a bunch of wet cats, which
I would still
probably
be afraid of.
aren't
Sorry.
super. Yeah, it's still kind
sorry.
of dangerous, but not supernaturally possessed.
I'm glad this sprinkler system is on because I wet myself. Big kitty.
Right.
I'm
But
gonna say I'd almost trust the possessed animal over the non-possessed one because at least you know what the possessed one wants.
yeah, well, there's that for sure, right?
Pretty sure it doesn't want to snuggle,
So,
especially now that it's wet.
especially now that it's wet. So, but apparently that was enough. Apparently they all just got pissed off and decided to leave at that point when they were suddenly came out of their trance and were like, oh, I'm just like wet, and they're just like, fuck it, I'm out. So, yeah, that's how so he decides there's definitely something going on now, and it's definitely not. There's their confirmation, I guess, of what he sort of already knew.
So they decide to break into Dr. Watson's office because she becomes prime suspect number 1 because of having access to the cats
Yes.
and sending Dresden to the location where the cats end up
Attacking
being
him.
and attacking. And Will comes along for fun because she's a little bit on the naive side. Oh yeah, this is totally legal.
There was a little bit, we will get there, so no spoilers, but a lot of deadbeat vibes going on in this short story with like the assistant run around,
A little bit, yep.
you know?
A little bit, some parallels to be drawn.
A little bit of parallels going on.
Yeah, definitely
there.
for like a couple of stories and things. Either like you say, sort of phrases that he uses, or the vibe of it, or the interactions, or whatever it is. Yeah, there's a couple.
Even like Sheila later on, I see in some ways.
yeah,
It's like, yeah.
Yeah, the whole, so, yeah. But, yeah, goes to check out the office, and he gets a little bit smart, so yeah, so they kind of do the break and enter thing or whatever. Cop's got better things to do than get arrested for breaking and entering, and she's like, oh god, what? He's like, it's a joke.
Did you just break that lock? It was broken when I got here, and you think that too.
Yeah. There's definitely a good, still keeps up with like even though there's sort of a little bit of a different tone, it's not Dresden, and you still get the essence of Dresden, and you still get it as well, and that's what I do, that part doesn't change. But yeah, he gets a little bit smart. He kind of checks a little bit first and discovers there's some wards or mystical energy or whatever exactly it is he's checking and finding here in this
Carved
office.
into the file cabinet.
Yeah, so uses his spidey senses to sort of track that out instead of just blundering around, so saves some time there. Some time in exposition. Oh, look, there's stuff right there.
He finds the 7 pots full of, with blood residue.
Six
pots. Sorry.
The 7th one is empty.
Here, he's a 6-pot.
It is filled with runes, but contains nothing as of yet.
Right.
Dun, dun, dun.
So it is. So he pockets one of them, checks out a little, pockets it, takes it off with him.
I know, which I was like, they're not shown with any covers or anything. You don't see Harry pull out a bag here. I'm like, he just dumps this open pot of blood in his duster pocket. I'm like, really, Harry, given the way things go, I don't see that sitting upright the whole time, but,
Oh, I didn't think that it had blood in it. It just had residue on that it had blood
on the
in
rim.
Yeah, he's like, I don't recognize the jars or the spells laid on them, except in the most general terms, more preservation magic, but I do recognize the stains around the lips of the jars. So yeah, I guess they're not full, just the dark and shadowy of the picture. It kind of makes them look like they're full, but yeah, it's just the lips of the jar are all stained with blood. So I guess fair. I guess, yeah. They were holding blood, they're not anymore.
So yeah, drops in his pocket, and before they can make a quick getaway, Watson catches them.
And we get super evil face, so we really know that.
Very evil. The illustrator was not kind to her angles.
Right up her nose there. It was like, yeah.
Make her look a little bit like an alien in that one.
Yeah.
Something, yeah. So.
Well, and there's very
ugly means evil.
I would say more than just passive threats that she gives.
I mean, it's another quip. Like, Will's like, did she just threaten you? Yeah. Is you not worried? Everyone threatens me.
Yeah. Right.
Doesn't that scare you? Nah.
Well, yeah.
Pretty much everyone does that.
Yeah, that's exactly. Did you just write? Yeah, doesn't that scare you? No, pretty much everyone does that.
I'm used to it. It's all good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's like, no, pretty much everyone. He's like, I don't tell the rest that Watson just threatened to turn her into corpse number 3. So yeah, so Will's sort of on the radar because she's trying to hide behind Harry.
Well, and she figures that out on her own too, just by watching Dresden's behavior.
Yeah, she's smart.
Yeah, she's no dummy.
Yeah, no, but
So big cat kerfuffle scuffle, and then break it into Watson's office, get threatened by Watson, and then they decide to head back to Harry's house to get a little bit of research done. So, Harry lets her into the apartment, does a little bit of magic, and is like, blah, 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 people suck, but persons are worth saving, and magic is real, but y'all convince yourself this was all a dream by next year, and
next month.
Magic is real, but you're too dumb to accept it. Like, I don't know, he just drops a bunch of lore on her, and he's like, now stay here, I have shit to do, and goes down to the basement.
Yeah.
After getting some very crucial supplies of burgers.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Critically important wizard supplies from Burger King.
Critically important wizard supplies.
Is it Burger King?
Oh yeah,
yes,
Burger
it's
King.
definitely Burger King.
The book, probably for, I don't know, copyright reasons, but Dresden is all about the Burger King. So
he is the Burger King.
Yeah, I don't think they were
later
able,
claim.
Yeah, in the book. Yeah. He does that a couple times, I feel, but yeah. But can I
got a little paper crown, obviously, because I'm the Burger King.
They all thought I was a child, but yeah. The way he's holding Mister really rubs me the wrong way too, as I'm sure it would have to. He holds him like a sack of potatoes. Like, okay, maybe when you first picked him up or when he dumps it in, like, Will's arms, but you stand there for, like, 10 or 15 minutes of conversation.
It's a big cat.
I know, but he holds him like he doesn't hold him like a cat.
Bench lifts his cat.
I had a cat that was just about as, well, maybe not as large as this one, but just huge like that. And I used to have to hold that cat that way because they're heavy when they're that big.
I was like, I don't know if I could hold it the same way I'd hold a normal cat. Like,
Okay, you guys are 5 foot something women. We're talking about an NBA sized dude.
And that cat is
big
even
cat.
larger.
I know. It's a big
cat.
cat to us, but it's like normal sized cat.
No,
and
it's
somewhat
not.
in ratio to.
What do you?
I don't.
This cat sheep, and I think she took him seriously because it was feasible.
I mean, I have no problem with the way when he kind
Size
of
of a
dumps it
lamb.
into her arms, and that's how she sort of gets the cat. But just it's not even like if he just picked it up, but the fact that like
I think it's
for a
rude
couple-
that he dumped it
for
in her
like
arms.
2 or 3 panels of him talking, which
Crush
to
her.
me
You
says
Like animals.
this was not instantaneous, but it just I don't know. Ugh.
It's a huge cat, even for Dresden,
It's a
okay?
huge cat,
The thing
but
can knock him
just-
off his balance. It slams into his ankles. Like,
Maybe if they'd even drawn Mister as being slightly comfortable with being held like, but I'm like, the cat doesn't look like he wants to be held that way, so why are you holding him that way? I just
Mister's in charge.
pick
He'd
him
have
up
left
and-
if he wanted to leave.
Oh yeah, a cat that big, if he didn't want to be there, would not be there.
But still.
Fuck your complaints.
One wiggle.
That's just one of those
he'd be
things
gone.
that just, yes, that's
2 to 1, we
that's
don't agree.
That's a personal tick right there. See, at least she like sits down. The next one, she like sits down and he's like in her lap or whatever. But yes, fine. It looks so awkward to me. Dresden just standing there holding him like a sack of potatoes. Like,
I mean, no offense
Just-
to
I
men,
don't-
but like I feel like that's just how they hold animals too. Like,
Well, if you see a lot of pictures of Maine Coons, they're almost always holding them like that.
yeah, they're
Or
massive.
like the double-armed hold
apparently,
up
I
because
just
they're
have
too big.
not searched enough cat videos. I'm
Thinking of every
sorry,
time
but-
my dad has ever held a cat. It's like,
Yeah, but I don't think that's
Hold it
the
like a
yardstick you
football.
want to
yeah,
measure.
like
You want to measure things
Wow,
by.
you know.
Like, I've seen the way he held you too. You know, have we mentioned all the possible brain?
Wait,
injuries?
he held me?
Yeah, twice.
So anyway, he goes down to the basement, ditches the girl under suffocated by the cat.
Yes.
Heads down to Bob, pulls out his jar, shows him the goods.
I love the little scanny, like, looks,
Yeah,
like laser eyes.
The visual wage thing. True. I kind of like too how Bob's like black speech bubbles. Like everyone else is like the white speech bubbles with the black writing, but Bob's is like a black speech bubble with like white writing. It just that
It's a nice touch.
different.
It's a nice
Yeah,
touch.
it's just like right. Like this is just not your Joe Blow human dude you're talking to. This is something else.
skull,
It's a
first of
skull.
all.
It's a spirit of yes, but but exactly. It's just I thought that was kind of again something you don't get something that's
Aesthetically.
a nice little
Nod.
advantage change to the graphic novel illustrations, and then he's throwing into the thing and he just like smushes it and breaks it up to see like the runes or markings or etchings or whatever they are on the inside. But I was like, this is just like so funny, and I'm like, again, maybe if I lived in a different
Preservation
world,
of evidence much?
yeah, exactly, right? Like, these are the things, and I'm like, again, it mildly surprised me sometimes on, like, procedural shows, too, where you're like, okay. But again, right, in my never having been there, done that kind of mind, you're like, why, like, I would not, I'd be like, well, what is that? How do you know? Like, maybe don't break it, there's something's gonna, but anyways, yeah, he's just like, crunch. Oh,
For
yeah,
real, he was
this is
asking
here.
to release, like, a dark spirit into his home.
Right?
Like, now you're haunted now, you idiot.
Right? Like, again, shout out to Critical Role, which was that same thing. It's like their conversation, it's like one person, they're like, oh, there's a door, let's go in. And then somebody else is like, wait. No, wait. What if the door is, oh, yeah, you're right, there might be. And then it's really funny because then they talk themselves in circles like 6 times. It starts out like no big deal, and then it's like really big danger.
And then
they're like,
Travis
well,
opens the
maybe
door.
it's not. And then, and then eventually, they like get sick of discussing it, and somebody just, but I just find it's like so funny sometimes, like how I'm like, that's right. I was like, no, wait, I'm like, yeah, exactly. It's like every time they don't check, something blows up in their face. Every time they're like super careful and like check 50,000 times, he's like, you press on the door and nothing happens.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, it's like that here too. It's like, wait, what are you? But Harry's just like, oh, fuck it, whatever.
So Bob says it was very old. Harry suspects it might be like cuneiform, but Bob's like, no, but it's like same timeline basically.
Yeah.
And basically puts it down to Hecate, which is...
Because it's an ascension ritual.
It's an ascension ritual,
But
totally.
he
And
crushes the thing and then it managed to see on the inside of the...
That's what we were just talking
yeah,
about.
exactly.
Yeah.
The runes inside, yeah.
I'm saying he just goes
cuneiform.
ahead and breaks it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Hecate was like the goddess of
crossroads.
magic and
She's the goddess of night.
necromancy,
Yeah.
goddess of night. So she's totally up in this whole like evil magic, darkness, blah blah
oh,
sort
shit,
of thing,
realm.
you know, like
Yeah, Sumerian cuneiform, that's what he's looking
Yes.
at. Yeah, and then Bob's like, no. Arcadian mystic runes, older stuff, rarer than hell.
and that basically boils down to Hecate Hags, an ancient sort of cult that
Yeah.
is essentially trying to become their own version of Hecate. They want to ascend to their own godhood
yeah.
by basically sucking the power out of all of these powerful animals and using that power to then boost themselves into this godly ascension.
Yeah.
How many times can I say godly ascension in one way? I keep looking for a new way to say it, and then I just say the same thing.
Well, and after that, they decide to head back to the zoo only to find basically a hellhound or a black dog
A black dog is in the
Black
back
dog
seat of
in
the
the
car.
backseat of the car.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that he
Yeah,
didn't notice when he
like-
hopped in. Like, there's barely
Oh,
room
it
for
is black
Harry.
and-
And,
Yeah.
Is it at night? I don't know.
yes, I think it is evening now
Yeah.
when they're trolling around. It is dark, but yeah, he realizes they've got this 1/7 jar. So once that's completed, and yeah, Will doesn't want to stay behind or be left alone. So of course, I mean, it's one of those safer away from me, safer with me. It's kind of a 50-50. It's like I'm heading into so you're kind of safer because you're right here. I can protect you, but you're also going to head straight into the eye of the storm with me. So, yeah, I love how they get going and they are in motion.
Right.
You know, like I don't know how far they've gotten, but they are. And then all of a sudden, this thing just blasts out at them, and it's
Just
like
surprises them.
Well,
And
and
that's-
again, and especially the way they show like how huge it is attacking them in the car. And I'm like, really, you didn't notice? Although, you know what? Although I say that, but how many times?
It's a supernatural entity. It may have just manifested while they got in.
Well, but I was gonna say we have a black golden retriever cross, and I will say it's hilarious the number of times I went to like pick up the kids from workers' school or some, in the evening. And it wasn't until we got back to the house and started getting after the car. They'd be like, oh, shit, I didn't know the dog was with. So she's a golden retriever size. She's like an 85-pound dog. She's a large dog. But you know what? She was not a noisy car traveler. She didn't bark at stuff. And she would just, and you're right. I'm like, I guess we would forget and not notice her
still
in the back
alive.
of the car. She's still alive.
Speak to him about her like
just
she
turned
was.
10. She just turned 10. But anyway, so maybe I guess it's slightly possible.
excited at my 10th birthday.
Not true.
That's
You
because
got
you're going
I
to live
got-
longer than that.
You got that. There's that. Yeah, she's. When you're the equivalent of 70, I'll be impressed too. I'm sure I'll give you a big woohoo.
You'll be
then.
dead.
Yeah, you don't know that. But you did get your own room for your 10th birthday, so
So did Mackenzie. She didn't have a birthday.
This concludes our episode 4.1, Things Are Getting Hairy. Thank you for listening. Join us for the next episode where we conclude our examination of Welcome to the Jungle. You can find us online at freeflowrambling.com and McAnally's.ca. There we have links to our other podcasts, social media, and other fun tidbits. Please subscribe if you like what you're hearing, and please consider supporting us through Patreon to keep the magic alive and see more content. We are Free Flow Rambling. Conjure at it by your own risk.